everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is C and I am a self-taught jewelry maker. If you see me wearing the same outfit from last week's video, that's because I just finished recording the introduction from last week. This is actually the second part of the Bezel set series. So it's only fair that I'm doing it at the same time, right? In front of me right now, I have the Bezel set of the 6mm stone, all ready to be set. I just have to maybe polish a little bit and sand some of the jagged edges, but they're ready. I will show you how to do it using a thermal lock because they're so little I cannot hold it with my hand because it's complicated. If you have not tuned in the last week's video, you're welcome to watch it. However, don't worry, I want to make this video to be able to be independent by itself. The process of making the bezel set will be from the beginning, from cutting the bezel wall, also the backing, and eventually the setting of the stone. However, I'm very humble because you know that I am a self-taught jewelry maker, so I cannot tell you that this is exactly how to do it. Regardless, I feel like there's going to be a lot of things to learn in this video, and for you who has learned how to make the bezel set in the class, maybe you'll be able to see it from a different angle. That's my intention, and eventually learn from it. So without further ado, let's get to work.
These are the stones that we are going to set today, minus the large Amazonite that we set 2 weeks ago. The diameter of the circles are 6 millimeters. For the ovals, it's 7 millimeters vertically. First step, I'm tracing the bezel wall. I'm using 26 gauge silver sheet. I'm using the metal shears to cut the strip and make sure that every time I measure the circumference, the stone needs to snug fit. I showed you how I measure the height of the wall from the previous video. I will put the link on the description if you want to dig into the details. So yes, you need to know which bezel goes to which stone. You cannot just measure 6 millimeters like I did. I paid the price for my mistake. Next step, I'm filing the edges flat to make sure that the both of the end is touching without gap or discrepancies. Joining the edges with a little bit of tension is very important so that the bezel is going continuously and that there's no solder mark is visible at the end. For an easy view, I always mark where the joints meet with Sharpie. They are ready for soldering, so I'm prepping those by dipping them into the borax splatter for flux and just put all the bezel walls on the soldering block. I also place the solder chip below the gap. I don't go into detail on how I did it. If you are interested, I'm putting the playlist on how to solder silver for you to watch them later. Next, I'm going to check the bezel if they fit or not. Most of them fits, but one needs a fixing. So I'm using one of the method here that I find it useful, which is sliding the wall into the mandrel, fix the mandrel onto the bench vise, and hammer just like this, so that the vise will move the wall slowly into a larger diameter part of the mandrel. Moving on real quick, the backing of the bezel is made from 18 gauge wire. My goal is that it will fit into the diameter of the bezel wall. Another thing is when I cut using a wire cutter, I need to shave off in the end of the base edge from the cutter So make sure that they are really flat and both of the edges meet. This way, when the ring are soldered close, you will not even see where it begins or where it ends. It will be just a continuous circle. One tips to know if the bezel backing is a good size is that it will not jiggle when you put inside the bezel wall. In fact, it will snug fit, like you will hear the click sound. And to do that, you can push the ring using the dull part of the flat nose pliers. Next step, I'm cutting off a bunch of 4 centimeter wires with a thickness of 20 gauge. Can you guess what this is for? It's actually for the ear wires. They are each going to be soldered on the bezel, and obviously I need to file off the edges flat. To make the work faster, I'm doing a bulk file like this, marking them with the Sharpie so that I will not forget which side is to solder. Now that all the backings and walls are assembled, it's time for me to solder them. So back to the soldering block. First step, I'm cutting off the solder chips, preparing the flux, and I do not want to do the extra work here, so instead of doing it one by one, I'll just bulk solder. If you do it like me, make sure that they are not too close to one another, and because we don't want to create accidents. And here I'm placing the bezel upside down, and I do not have any trick, you guys. I just put the solder chip on top of the backing, and since the bezel is rather small, I'll just put one chip, and you'll see the solder will flow completely through the gap in between the two elements. Diary keepers, this time I'm not going to fast forward the video so you can see how long it takes for each solder chip to melt, and I put the speaker on for you a real-time experience, and neither will I add any music, so it's just you, me, and the fire. However, if you think that this is too slow, you're welcome to fast forward to the next step. Everyone, please don't ever touch anything that is on the soldering block with your bare hands. I did it because what you didn't know is that the pieces have been on the block for more than an hour, so they're not fresh from the fire. Next step, I'm going to attach the ear hook that we made earlier by cutting off the 4 centimeter of 20 gauge wire. Now, they will each be soldered perpendicularly to the bezel. I use all hard solder here. I do not know why they don't melt altogether. Normally, logically, they would melt, right? But they don't. I have been making bezel pendants for a while now, and I've always been using the hard solder. They never melt. However, I have a solution for you who are scared. For the ear wires, you can use the medium solder, just in case. Finally, I am done with the soldering business. Here, everyone, I'm so proud of myself. Now let's look at the result. And the result is not completely perfect because apparently there's a lot of jagged edges. For this, I'm going to use my power tool and setting it to the lowest power. Using the 80 grit sandpaper mounted on the power tool, and I thoroughly cleaned up the rough ends. I need to be most careful with the bezel wall, definitely, as they have already are a bit thin from the beginning, so I do not want the sandpaper to eat all those hard work. As you can see here, I'm not going to go into detail on how I do it, but you see some of the tools
I'm going
that
to
I'm
use this
using.
clip a bit closer here.
Yeah,
So that
sometimes I would use the power tool, and sometimes I would use the normal file like
coming
right now.
together.
And I just realized that, did I just talk to myself while working?
We'll see if it's
Sorry about that. Or why do I have to be sorry? No, not sorry, I guess. But excuse me if it doesn't sound like normal. Which brings me to this question. If any one of you are talking to yourself while working, please leave a comment below. That way I know that I'm not crazy and I'm not the only one. For you who are interested to be watching how I cleaned up the jagged edges in detail, please let me know so that maybe in the future I will make the video about it. So dairy keepers, first my approach is to clean up the rough edges, and once they are even, I can use this jigs, which is basically a softer sandpaper, to start the sanding process. If you are interested to know in detail how to do it, I had made a special video about this specific subject, and I will put the link on the description below so that you can watch them later. Okay, this specific bezel is pretty much done and ready for stone setting. For setting the stone, I'm using this thermalock. I prepare my hot water, dump the thermalock in the recipient until it became soft. Be careful, it will take a while. And the water needs to be really hot. And then, once it's soft, I'm going to mount the bezel and the stone like this so that it will grip the element while I'm doing a lot of hammering to the bezel wall. The next step is to mount the thermalock on the bench vise. Here it's done when they're not 100% hard yet. Sometimes it can be easier because it can fit into the vise, but then you also risk to displace the stone and etc. To be honest with you, dairy keepers, I'm very new with this kind of way of working. Normally, if you have watched my stone setting video, I would just use my left hands to keep it in place and push using the bezel pusher and close this bezel section by section. So let's see how it goes. As you can see here, I try not to edit too much on this particular process, so you can see it for yourself how it is done. The only thing I do to make it simpler and faster is to edit this video into 2 times faster. However, I just let the process to be filmed normally, nor I try to cut certain steps. So this is a pure step on how I set the stone using this method. And for sure, I cannot explain what I did here because I myself am still learning. If you have more experience for this, I would really be happy if you can let me know if I'm doing something good or is something that I have to not do at all. I'd be more than happy to get a lot of advice from all of you. Thank you so much. Nonetheless, this piece is done, I think. In order to take off the thermalock, just put it into the hot water and the piece will come off by itself. I know that this is not a magic. I am working on uh, 5 pairs of earrings and I have to do one by one for this piece, and I feel like it's okay to show you the other bezel. Here I'm cleaning off the bezel that have already been set. I'm very happy with the process. Again, I'm using this jig to clean off some of the ugly uneven edges, and at the end I'm using the steel wool to give it a satin finish look. Using the burnisher that comes with the stone setting kit, I like to burnish the inside of the bezel so that it looks nice, smooth, and shiny. And also, with this burnisher, it will help me to take off some of the nicks um, of the silver. All the hard work pays off. I would like to take a moment to admire these. If you notice, the blue kyanite cannot be set because silly me, the stone is actually smaller than 6 millimeter. But hey, we have the rest being taken care of, so I don't mind this at all. Now that the bezel stone is taken care of, I just have to worry about shaping the ear wire. I'm using this 1 centimeter diameter pliers to fold the ear wire, and after that I'm hardening it with the rawhide mallet. A couple of days ago, I received this bouquet of mimosa for free from the market. I may tell you all about this on the next video. I thought it would look so pretty for the backdrop of these new pieces. And for the shot, I'm using my DSLR camera to get that clear shot. But I think you can use your iPhone to do the job now. Diary keepers, if you are interested to see the photos or the details of these French dangle earrings, you are very welcome to check this out on my Etsy shop. All the details are going to be provided on the description of the video below.
This is the end of the Bezel set series, where the first video is from last week, where I show you how to make these earrings. And then this week, well, you've seen it, and I hope that you learned something from it. I do not want to pretend that I'm a teacher. However, I hope that you can anyway learn something from the experience that I show you through videos. Every artist have their own way of creating their craft, and it's always interesting to see how other people are doing it. This is the reason why I created this YouTube channel from the beginning. If you enjoyed this video, I would encourage you to subscribe and like, and also share the video. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for the upcoming videos. Stay creative, be kind to yourself and others, And I'll see you on the next video. Bye!